How you doing? This is Sean McVeigh with Sean's Outdoor Adventures, and today I'm back at Miller's Gun Shop. I'm going to be working with Rick today. We're going to be reviewing a bunch of their crossbows. So let's get started. So the Horton and the Bowtech, you said, use a rail and oil-based lubricant?
Correct.
And it's about every 20 to 30 shots you're supposed to lube the crossbow.
That is correct. And what that does is reduces friction. Because all crossbows have downforce. It's pretty sparingly. You really can't put too much on it, especially when the bow's brand new. But there's no use wasting it because it'll just get blown off of there when your string goes out across. And you just want to rub it in until it looks like black ice. The first time you do them, you're kind of like curing it like you would with a frying pan. So I always put a little bit extra on when for a brand new bow. And the 10 point also takes the oil. The thing about the 10 points in the Hortons, the oil actually goes down into your trigger every time you cock your bow. That's why it's called rail and trigger lube. And it makes your trigger work easier as you use your bow.
Alright, so it's the Horton and 10 point that require that. I thought it was, you said Bowtech.
No,
but
Horton and 10 point. And then your other brands all take, we really like this stuff called rail snot. It's almost like a petroleum jelly. And you just put a little bit on and rub it in until it's nice and shiny. The Excalibur here with Excalibur doesn't make a lube. They say it's not necessary, but in our experience it doesn't hurt a thing, and it can only help your string last longer in all cases. And the Parker, all the companies make a lube that has their brand on it, but this rail snot's pretty much, it's generic, but it works on so many of the bows, and we sell a lot of it. It's very good. No odor. You don't have to worry about the deer smelling it. This is the Parker Thunderhawk, first one we're going to do.
And you were mentioning a minute ago that typically in the crossbow industry, the faster your bow, the more expensive it is.
Correct. That's pretty much your faster bows. The only one that's not the case, PSE makes a bow called the Fang, which is our least expensive crossbow for about $379, and it shoots about $380. So there's a case where, okay, with your crossbows, in every case your bow must be on fire to cock it. Okay, that's just an industry standard. When you cock your bow, in every case except for the Excalibur, your bow will automatically go into safety. So use a cocking rope. A lot of guys feel they have the strength to cock their bow without the rope. But the reason you don't do that is because of the rail lube we put on. It makes it slippery. And also, if you cock it by your hands, you're not going to get an even pull on both sides. And your bow could shoot to the left or the right because everybody's stronger in one arm or the other. So you use the cocking rope, and it guarantees an even, steady pull. So in most cases, your hooks on your cocking rope will go down over your string. And most of your bows have a little groove back here. So you just more or less split the difference with your cocking device. Bring it up. Put it down over your string. Keep a hold of the handles. Place your bow on the floor. Put downward pressure because you're going to be pulling up on this. And just straighten up using your back. Now, when you hear that click, your bow goes on safety. That means it's safely cocked. Alright? The bow is on safe, cannot be fired. All your bows come with an anti-dry fire. When I load this bow, you're going to hear an audible click, which is turning off your anti-dry fire. In all cases with the crossbow, your odd color vane will always go down into the groove on your barrel. So you take your bolt, slide it under the retainer clip, lay it down in the barrel, reach out towards the end, and slide back. Did you hear that click?
Yep.
Okay, that's disengaging your anti-dry fire. Okay, this bow, the Parker Thunderhawk, which is our best-selling bow, comes in two versions, with an illuminated scope and without an illuminated scope. That's the only difference. It's about a $75 difference, so you can get this bow without the illuminated scope for $569, with the illuminated scope for $624. So go sit down here. Okay, one important thing with all crossbows is protecting your fingers and thumbs. Almost everyone has a cutout here to put your hand. There's a reason that's like that. If you would have your fingers up here like this, or your thumb up over the rail, which I don't have huge hands and I can still reach up there, you would cause serious damage to your hands. So, and also, a lot of guys that shoot a rifle will put their hand down like this. You do not want to do that because your fingers are in the way. So, we're going to shoot off the bag here. All you do with the safety, the Parker has a safety just like a light switch. Flick it up onto fire, your bow's ready to shoot, and you're going to hear, crossbows are not the quietest thing on earth. And that's all there is to it. Now, when we go through these bows, Sean, you're going to notice when you cock them, there is a difference. Your faster bows, almost every case except for the Bowtech, have heavier limbs and they're also harder to cock.
Right.
Most of your faster bows have a longer power stroke, which is the distance between your string and the trigger. That's how far you have to pull the bow to cock it.
What's the poundage for each of the bows we're shooting?
Okay, this one's 160 pounds on the Parker Thunderhawk,
Okay.
which is pretty basic.
Is that what the other ones are at? Or?
The Bowtech's 150 pound, but it's also our fastest bow because of the preloaded limbs. If you look down across these bows, it's the only one that the limbs are preloaded, much like many of today's modern crossbows or
Compound
bows. The Excalibur has no wheels or cables. Their claim to fame is it's the most basic crossbow out there. It's also one of the harder ones to cock because there's no assist with the cams. You're pulling back these 180-pound limbs with just your arms, or your back in this case. The Turbo, which you'll see, has a cranking system on it, which really makes it easier to cock. You just crank it like you do a winch. We'll show you how that works. And the Horton Storm has reverse limbs, which as you can see, 90% of your crossbows are like a sideways mounted regular compound bow. The reverse limbs go the opposite direction. So let's have you cock this one, load it and fire it.
So the criteria for today that I wanted to work with, as far as comparing some of these, is ease of cocking is one thing. I wanted to shoot them one time on the rest, but one time free-handed, just to see how that feels. Because sometimes you're walking in the woods, you get a shot like that.
Correct.
So that's another thing we want to look at, how it feels balance-wise. And then also, we'll just compare, as you mentioned, they're a little bit noisy, but we'll just kind of compare which ones might be a little bit quieter, because some people might be interested in that for a hunting situation.
So there's your cocker. That one's fairly easy to cock.
Yeah, that felt pretty easy. I'm also going to shoot them with the quivers on just to see, because this one has the quiver here, some have a side mount, and some people, most people that are using crossbows, I imagine, is for hunting. You know what I mean?
Correct.
And so there's always going to be those situations where you're hiking in or out of your spot, and you have an opportunity to shoot. Obviously, if you're, did I get?
Correct. It doesn't hook on like a bow does.
I was listening for that click.
Even though the Parker has an actual knock, they don't hook onto your string.
Right.
And in most cases, your bow will have 4 or 5 reticles, and they're in 10-yard increments. So if you sight your bow in the top crosshair 20, you'll be good 20, 30, 40, and 50.
All right, that felt good and hit right where I was aiming. You feel a little bit of kick, and that's one thing I wanted to compare to. Like, I mean, obviously, you're going to expect that, and it'll be a.
And the difference with the crossbow, the kick is a forward motion. That's why a guy can't put a rifle scope on there. I've had guys bring in rifle scopes and say, I want to put this in my crossbow. Mm-hmm. They're not designed to handle the forward motion, where they're more for recoil.
I'm going to do one more just free-handed and just for comparison, and then we'll move on to the next one. And the price on this one again was, what was the?
It's $579 with the non-illuminated scope, right. $624 with the illuminated scope.
And now, did you say I just do you lift up with your back or?
Use your back. Just grab a hold and stand up. And in your case, in my case, with us being tall. Mm-hmm. It makes it a lot easier. A lot of times the person will get the whole way up and the bow won't be cocked yet. They'll continue to pull with just their arms. So the taller you are, the more advantage you have when it comes to the cocking. And all of your bows have what they call a retainer clip to help hold your arrow.
Nice.
Good.
All right.
And that's another thing about a crossbow. The ease of getting sighted in without the repetitive practice.
And you know, I get, me being such an archer, I get lots of questions and people like, does it bother you that they allow crossbow hunting now? And initially I thought, you know, if you're injured or something, that's one thing, but I was against it at first. Mm-hmm. But really, it comes down to ethics for the animal. If it's a person who's not going to have time to practice because of work, and hey, some people, that's just their life. They don't have the time. I think if somebody in that situation where you're not going to have the time to practice, and this is something you can get sighted in and have more confidence and a better chance of doing a good job with the animal.
My opinion is, with the whole thing, is time is a big factor, and also I would rather have someone be very proficient with their crossbow than to not be very good at all with their regular bow.
Right, and so so there's ethics for the animal that needs to be considered, and if you're somebody who can do the archery, that's me. I love shooting my bow anyway, and I'll make the time. But and I just wanted to address that because I know there's a lot of people out there that it's an issue, and but hey, everyone. You got to give people space in a certain regard, and when it comes to caring for the animal, I think that's ultimately got to be the top priority. Is we got to care for the animal. So I just wanted to throw that in there. Let's grab those arrows, Aaron. Okay, we're going to do the 10-point Turbo GT, and we have this specifically because of the cranking mechanism. Because not everyone's able to, as you were saying, crank a crossbow. Especially you get your older gentleman or a woman who maybe does have an injury and just can't pull that, that 180 pounds or 160 pounds. Having something like this is definitely going to help.
Definitely. Okay, this bow here, the 10-point Turbo GT, 10-point is a crossbow-only company. So they've really got their act together with the crossbows. They don't build bows, they don't build guns, they build crossbows. And their quality is very, very, very good. Now, with the cocking device, it adds a little bit of weight to your bow, but it also gets a lot of people in the woods that wouldn't be able to use a conventional bow or a regular compound without the crank. So what you do with the crank, it has a engage and disengage button. So you set it on disengage, grab a hold of your puller, bring it up over, place it onto your string, put it on engage, and then all you do, you crank this. It will bring it the whole way. It takes about 4 pounds of pressure to do this. It's a lot slower process, but it also gives you the opportunity to cock your bow in the tree stand if you would get a second shot.
Yeah. And with the amount of noise you're going to create, it'll be tough probably to get a second shot off. And that's something that needs to be considered too. It's almost like hunting with flintlock at that point. You get one shot.
You get one shot.
You get one shot, so you got to make it count.
Yep.
And so
now, sometimes during the rut, when the deer's really not paying any attention, now what you do is you crank it almost the whole way back till you get underneath your trigger housing. Then you slow down. You're just going to listen for a click. You clicked and put the bow on to safety. So all you do from this point on, you push forward the direction you were cranking, disengage your crank, and back it off 3 turns. 2, 3. Pull your handle out because it would spin. Then you just pop this off. Your bow's already cocked. It's on. The anti-dry fire is engaged. The bow cannot be fired. Put it back in the caddy. You're ready to shoot. Loading, the same principle. Odd color feather down, or vane in this case. Very few people shoot real feathers with the crossbows. Lay it on the barrel and with the odd vane down in. Pull her back until you hear that click. And the safety on the 10 points is located on the side. You just push it forward. And make sure your hands are out of the way. Squeeze the trigger. The speed of this bow is 360 feet a second, which is pretty good.
And what's the cost on this one?
This bow with the cocker is $979. Without the cocker, it's $850. Make sure you clear your scope. Perfect. Put it on a gauge. Now normally you do this on the floor with your foot in it.
Okay.
But it's easier to...
I can do that if that's normal.
Okay. And your bow must be on fire, just in all cases. What I tell a guy when he shoots his bow, leave it on fire.
Okay.
Then it's ready for the next thing.
And do I go clockwise?
Yes. And you can go pretty fast till you get back to where your string starts underneath.
And if you're in a hunting situation, you could probably...
If you're in a hunting season, you can put that on disengage and cock it without any noise. But you must make sure you hold on to it.
Yeah, so there you go. Yeah, so it's not clicking. You could get it. You could sneak in that.
But you'd have to be very careful not to leave go of that.
Yeah, it'd be very dangerous.
If you do leave go,
yeah,
that handle's
so
going to spin.
if you're shaking, it's like, oh, you might not want to do that. But so, yeah.
And then just keep on coming. You're going to hear the click when it goes back on the safety. Okay, now hold down pressure on the handle, put it on disengage, and then come backwards 3 turns. Well, you're going to feel the pressure come off of that. Perfect. Now take your handle out.
Do I put it back on engage?
No, leave it on disengage because you're going to pull. Take your handle out.
Okay.
And then just push evenly on both sides till you clear your scope. And then bring it back, put it back in the caddy. They are very slick. Every bow offers a crank. 10 points to anyone that builds it into the bow. And also your handle.
How's it go back?
Okay, there's a little hole right here.
Okay.
Goes right up in there and down.
Okay.
And it's always with you.
Okay. And that's something too, like if you're hiking in and out of the woods, you'll probably want to keep an eye on that. It could get knocked out.
It could get knocked out.
You don't want to be in a situation where...
you cannot crank them with your fingers. And the 10 points all come with illuminated scopes also, which we don't have on.
Safety.
Yep. That proves your anti-dry fire is working and your safety's working.
All right, let's... I want to do one more with the standing.
Okay. This is only the second time Sean ever used the crank, and you can see he already has it figured out.
I have it figured out.
It's pretty simple.
It is straightforward.
And you get a video with the bow. If you get, say you buy the bow and then you're not going to shoot for a while, and you say, oh, I forget exactly the steps are. It's all right on the video. As long as you remember to go through the steps, everything's...
I will say, like,
the 10 points heavier towards the front end.
Yeah, and it actually, I don't know, I actually feel like you can tell with that there that it's easier for it to tilt a little bit, which is something you'd have to be aware of, in your shooting. And I think for somebody who's looking to do a crossbow, it's good to practice with that on in case you're walking in the woods or walking out of the woods and you got to take a shot, or you have an opportunity to shot and you don't have time to take the quiver off and everything. I mean, that's just something to be aware of, and you can compensate that for that easy enough in the way you shoot, I think.
Yep, you can.
So they're not officially sighted in, but it's nice that my two shots, even the offhand, so Rick's was this shot here, but my on the rest and freehand in it, I did that with the last one too. So it's pretty easy to, if you just relax and ease the trigger off, it's easy to be pretty accurate.
They're very accurate. You will not want to shoot at the same spot when you start practicing. Okay, we're going to do the Excalibur next. The Excalibur's the bow without wheels or cables. It's a recurve limb bow, a little bit harder to cock because you don't have the assist of the cables. But it's very simple.
Mm-hmm. And what's the price on the Excalibur?
The Excalibur, this is called a Micro 380, which shoots 355, shoots 355 feet a second, and it's $9.99. Excalibur also carries a lifetime warranty on their bows. So, once again, the bow, the one big difference with the Excalibur, it does not automatically go onto safety. You must manually put the bow on safety. So the cocking is pretty much the same. Reach down, grab them, pull it up. It's got a very short power stroke. Cock it, then you must put the bow on safety. Okay? It's a lot harder to pull than your compound crossbows.
Have you used a cocker with Excalibur?
Yeah, the Excalibur cocker is one that just goes on the butt. It doesn't hook on, and you just put it on there, and the pressure of pulling your bow holds it back into it.
Is it fairly easy to use, or is this?
It's not as easy as a 10-point, but it takes probably 50% off of it.
Okay.
So the Excalibur has a flat knock, and also all three bolts are the same color, three vanes are the same color. Doesn't matter which one you put down, as long as you put one of them down. Every bow we shot today so far has recommended 100 grains. Excalibur recommends 150 grains. So the bow's loaded. We're going to give it a shot here. Safety's in the back, just like a light switch. That's the first thing you're going to notice. It is a little bit harder to cock.
Yep. Now, weight-wise, this one feels, it still feels pretty heavy, even without the...
Yeah, 7.5 pounds is pretty much what most of your crossbows weigh with everything on them.
Yeah. So you don't gain any advantage with weight. Now, do the hooks go down or up?
Up on this one.
Okay.
All your manufacturers are different. And there's a little groove back there that your rope goes into. And that just keeps it into place when you're cocking the bow so it doesn't slide on you. Do you feel much harder that one is to do?
That's tough.
Yeah, you're using...
If you have a bad back...
That's not the bow.
This is not the bow for you.
No. And it's a very short power stroke.
Now, which...
down is safety.
Safety down, okay.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely, if you're somebody who has a bad back, you either are going to need the cocker or you don't want to go with this bow.
Yeah, it's tough. It's not undoable, but you wouldn't want to go out back and shoot 50 shots with this bow.
No. Yeah, and it doesn't have, like, it doesn't when it goes off, it doesn't feel as much of a jolt as the other two, probably because it doesn't have the cams. You know. Let me try it free-handed.
Okay. Yeah, you can give yourself a pretty good workout cocking this baby.
Yeah, and you can smell. I mean, is that the smell that I'm smelling? From
it's the friction.
The friction.
And we also did lube the rail on this bow, and they don't recommend it. They say it's unnecessary, but you can see how Sean had to really pull this little bugger.
Yeah.
And they make one that's actually a 220-pound limb one, which is really tough to crank.
And this was 180, did you say?
Yes.
All right, let's try the offhanded shot here. All right.
They're all right in a group.
There's top two are my shots.
Yep.
And the bottom.
They're an inch apart.
Yep.
Which is not bad at all for shooting one offhand.
Yeah.
That's the one thing that's difference in the pricing is the speed, and even the inexpensive ones will shoot fantastic groups.
All right, we're doing Rick's favorite bow next, which is
the Bowtech Striker.
Now, what makes it your favorite?
The speed, the way it balances. When you shoot this bow offhand, you're going to say, "Man, that thing balances." And that's the best trigger in the industry.
Yeah. Now this first one, real quick, the Thunderhawk, was that the first one?
Correct.
Parker. And this was your more less expensive bow?
We sell a lot of that bow because the guy will come in here and say, I'm going to spend around $500 for a bow. For a complete package.
Yep. Now I would say out of the three I shot so far, if I was going to buy one of the three, I kind of like this one with the quiver there. I felt it balanced the best offhanded shots, which is important to me. And it seemed fairly comparable to the other two as far as the rest of the performance. But let's check out the Bowtech.
Okay. This is the Bowtech. This also has the front-mounted sideways quiver. The difference with this bow is it doesn't have the notch here to put your rope in. Your cocking device must go the whole way to the back of your stock. So what we'll do with this one, and this bow will automatically be on fire. You don't have to set it on fire. It automatically goes on fire. Then you just stand up.
Much longer power stroke on that.
Much longer. That's where this bow gets its speed. And it also has a cane.
Yep. And that's something to be mindful of too, especially if you're short. Like you were saying, you'll want to test out how easy or difficult it is for you to cock the bow, because the taller you are, it's a little easier.
Being taller is a definite advantage when it comes to your cocking.
Where's our safe on this one?
The safety is right on top. It's a magnetic safety. It makes absolutely no noise. And the trigger on this one is about a 3-pound trigger. It's comparable to a lot of really nice rifles. So if a guy comes in here and really wants a bow with a good trigger, this is the end. If you put them on wrong, what they do is they pop off.
Now there's a little groove in the back here. Is this what I'm putting it in?
Your string must be below that.
Below the groove?
Yeah.
So these hooks go inside the string stops on that. And was this one also 180 pounds?
That's only 150 pounds.
Okay, I was going to say it felt way
But
easier.
it gets the speed because of the cams and the preloaded limbs.
Okay, that was much easier to cock. So, especially if you're somebody whose health isn't as great and you need to be able to cock a crossbow a little easier, this is, already compared to the Excalibur, I would totally go with this over that.
And you're going to really like this.
And I like the balance. Another thing too, I noticed when I was resting the other crossbows with the side-mounted quiver, it was getting in the way on the rest, which made it harder to equalize the crossbow, make it level across. So, when you're resting on something in a hunting situation with the quiver on the side there, it actually can get in the way of you being able to rest the bow level. So that's another consideration.
Absolutely. And this one also recommends 100 grain tips. You can shoot a heavier tip. That's entirely up to you.
Nice.
Nicest trigger by far, isn't it?
Nice trigger. Has more of a kick too, because I guess because of all that.
Because of the speed.
But I mean, it's not a kick that would, I'm saying it just because it's there, but it's not like shooting a gun. It doesn't hurt at all. You know what I mean? So
that's something you get used to real quick when you start shooting your crossbow. At first, you're going to think, "Gosh, this is difficult and cumbersome," but
it's awkward getting used to it.
After you do it a few times,
this is definitely a much easier bow to cock for sure. No doubt about
smooth.
that. Yep.
Now, Bowtech is a bow company.
Yes.
But they have done a really good job with this crossbow. And it carries a lifetime warranty also. And it really balances nice. You're going to see when you shoot this
now,
in the hand.
The other thing too is you got to be mindful. You got to really take your hand off to take the safety off. If you're hunting, there's motion there, so you just got to be mindful of that too. It's not like on a gun where you can just flip your thumb over and you got to calculate that into your movements when you're hunting. Nice. So that my two shots, the offhand and the rest were, again, they're almost touching.
Yep.
And then Rick's was just slightly below mine. So.
And that's the thing, if you borrow a fella's crossbow, it's going to be very, very close. Like, a lot of people come in and buy a crossbow that the whole family's going to use. But it's all how you put your head down in the stock.
Yeah.
The way you sight it. So. Yep. But all of these.
They're all kill shots right
all
there.
All these would be very efficient shots.
Yep. So it's good even if you're borrowing a crossbow, it's good if you can get some practice shots just so you know. I mean, you don't have to change the sight around, but if you know you're hitting an inch to the left, you can compensate for that in a hunting situation. And it's good balance. I do personally have a strong preference for the quiver mounting across the front like that. So everyone's going to have their own preference, but I just want to point that out. Think about how you're going to be using the bow, and then how you might be resting it in a hunting situation, and how that quiver is going to correlate to the way you use it. So,
and in most cases, you can put the quiver either way.
Mm-hmm. What was the cost on this one?
This bow is $8.99. Newest technology, which is a reverse limb.
How long has this technology been out?
About 5 years.
Okay.
The big advantage, one of the drawbacks to all your crossbows was the width of the limbs in a tree stand.
Right.
And everything. When this bow is cocked, it's only 10 inches between your limbs. So it's the narrowest bow you have.
Yeah.
Okay. Once again, when cocking this bow, it's a little bit harder to cock because what you're doing is you're bringing those limbs in. So it's got the groove just like the 10-point does. Put your foot on it. Make sure it's on fire. Reach down, grab your sled, and then...
Yeah, so this has a sled as opposed to the separate
Yeah,
hook.
they call this a cocking sled. Now you can see how this brought those limbs in to a very narrow, very narrow.
And in order to really have that full advantage, you have to almost mount the quiver to the side. Otherwise, your quiver is going to be sticking out both sides real far.
And another thing you got to more watch, all your crossbows, you got to make sure you have total clearance from your tree stand, your railings, whatever you're shooting off of. When this bow goes off, those limbs are going to go back to their original position. So you got to allow yourself, if there's a tree over here and you're swinging your bow, and these limbs come out and hit a tree or a branch, you're going to cause damage to your bow.
Yeah.
So you got to watch out. You got to remember that even though it's very narrow to start with, and this also has a flat knock, so you can put either one of your vanes down. All your reverse limb bows are supposed to be quieter. I haven't really noticed that yet. They're not extremely noisy by any means, but
Yeah, in relation to cost, are they? What's the cost on one of these?
They're a little bit more because it's newer technology. Right. This one's $1,100, and you can also get the crank on it.
What's the the crank add to the cost?
About $100. And we have both versions.
What's the poundage on this one, Rick?
165.
Okay. Fairly easy to cock, especially again comparing it to the Excalibur. You really do feel a major difference in the ease of cocking.
Another thing this has is adjustable cheek piece and adjustable butt plate.
Okay. Yep.
So a taller guy can move it back, shorter guy can move it forward.
Okay.
So the bow can fit you. Another thing this one has, instead of the retainer clip, it has a brush.
Okay.
That's kind of a slick, instead of just a little clip, it has a brush to hold your arrow down.
I guess that might be a little quieter, the brush. You know,
A little
when you're
quieter.
sliding it.
Yep.
Now this one, you could reach the safe with your thumb on that, whereas on the Bowtech, you actually have to take your hand off.
Yep.
So just pointing that out. I do think it's nice having that ability to reach your safe without taking your hand
And the
off.
safety and the cheek piece are all adjustable for right or left-handed.
Yeah, that is. I think this one is noticeably quieter than the Bowtech, but definitely a nice bow for sure. Having the sled's kind of nice, you know, rather than having to hook both sides, each hook on. You know, that's slid. Now it's a little awkward cocking this because of how
You don't have a
narrow,
lot of place to get your hands.
to get your hands through.
And that bow balance,
Yeah.
the reverse limb bow's balance pretty nice.
Yeah, I do feel like the
It brings
balance,
everything in
yeah.
towards your hand.
The balance, I definitely like the balance of this one. I would say, and this is our last one for today.
Yeah.
I would say if money wasn't an issue, I'm kind of liking this, you know, just, I like the way it balances and how close it is because, you know, for movement in a hunting situation. But I also really like both of the, I like the Bowtech and I also like the, what was it? Oh, the first
Parker.
The Parker, and especially the price point with the Parker. So I definitely like those aspects of the bows.
And we have crossbows for under $400, which is absolutely nothing wrong with them.
Right.
They're not as fast,
Right.
but they'll do everything. The accuracy's there,
Yeah.
you know.
So I want to say thank you for taking the time.
Thank you. Appreciate
I mean, this has been great, and I haven't shot many crossbows before today, so this has been good for me, education for me, and I like them all. I would say that for me personally, my least favorite was the Excalibur because it's so hard to cock that, and I just think about all the people. Like sometimes I injure my back. Being tall, you injure your back a lot, and man, if I have a back injury, I'm not going to be able to cock that.
That's
too
the last
easily.
thing you're going to want to do.
So,
and guys will always ask. That's the one thing I'll say. How long can I leave my crossbow cocked? I say if you go out Friday evening, say you're camp, you go out Friday evening. If you can store it in a safe place where no one's going to touch it, you can leave it cocked overnight to go out the next morning. Don't let your bow cock for weeks.
now, yes. Now, if you don't have a place where you can fire the bow, is there a way to let it down safely? No, or
You've got to shoot.
You got to shoot. So you almost have to, especially if you're traveling for a hunt, you almost have to carry at least a small.
They make unloading bags.
Unloading bag.
They also make what they call unloading bolts, which is a weighted head bolt, almost like a blunt point,
Right.
which you just shoot into a stump of the ground.
Okay.
But you cannot safely let these bows down.
Right.
The older bows, 10, 20 years ago, used to have your buddy hold the string and you pull the trigger and you let your bow down.
Oh,
That's
you can't do that with
No.
you. I mean, you can feel how much
absolutely
force is
not.
with these now.
Absolutely not.
So, yeah, I like this. I mean, if I had all the money in the world and I was walking out here today, I really felt this was probably my favorite. But you know what the problem is? I like them all. So again, I always encourage people, get out there and shoot them. If you live in the area here, get over here and try them out. It's great range here and everything. And man, I like this. I think look over there. I think I'm gonna. Anyway, thanks again, Rick, and to Miller's Gun Shop. I appreciate it. Yeah. So take care.